on your shoulder like that and carrying it over, and then you found that when you dropped the bag that it'd lay in its place, like, you could lean that forward a little bit and you could drop the bag, and there was nothing worse than having to get hold of it by the ears and straighten it up. Like, the time you don't make it have another string.
Yeah. So take well, carry over one shoulder,
Like a shoulder, yeah. Like there's one across the shoulders, there's one across the back, but I found if you went straight on the back and grabbed the bag like that and stood onto your shoulder and bounced like a piece of timber,
You have to walk with it, from the hook to the spot.
Well, 30 bags, 25 bags long, which would be, I suppose you'd be looking around about 30 feet, something like that, easily 30 feet.
Each bag is 3 feet long, so get through that about 90 feet, 30 yards.
Yeah, you have a carry, a good carry on it.
And you're carrying over for made of that.
Yes, when you're topping up, yes. You'd start off, you'd build the stack, and then you'd come out to the height of the stack, say for 5 or 6 bags high, and you go back and repeat the same thing again.
And would you be willing, under the square of the hatch, under the hook, what do? You build that in too, and then work up. You don't have a big hole down the middle of the stack.
Oh, no.
You build a stack right under the front of the people.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Don't start out in the middle.
Oh, no.
That would be about this level.
Yeah.
There'd be an argument about the little shorter. They say the stack's too high, and we'd say it's just right, And then, then you went 25 bags back.
Yeah.
And you carried out the eye for the stack, 6 bags.
Yeah.
Well, you come in and you pulled it in. Well, then the bloke that was putting them on your back, the 2 blokes on the stack, they'd restart building the stack again. And the main thing was to keep a level for all you'd ever like this, because you had to walk on it.
So, and how much is a bag of wheat, a bag of flour?
£150.
How much is a bag of wheat?
Wheat was very heavy. Wheat was, you'd be looking about the £200 mark with wheat.
They're old blokes, and in a gang, a normal gang, you have a variety of age groups. With you, you'd have older.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So and you're expected to carry out, keep up with the hook.
Well, on a job like that, you'd usually find that it wasn't so bad on the wharf, and you'd leave the old members on the wharf.
Or on the deck, perhaps.
Or on the deck, yeah, slinging on the wharf, which was hard, because they had to be trucked out of a truck, and they had to be slung. You always seemed to get the break down below, but it was always better to leave the older chap on the wharf, where he had a stable footing, Yeah, that's right. They had it down, but you couldn't expect a young bloke to go down below, stay on the wharf and let an older fella go down where there was pitfalls of walking, which could, unnatural walking over flour. You get effect. You see a lot of these fellas that lump, they've got a limp, they're somewhere their back's gone, and they probably, if they'd have walked over a straight flat floor all the time, they wouldn't have it. But all of a sudden that weight would go into one spot,
Who would organise that?
Some would take their boots or work in the bare feet.
Who would organise that? Would that be the gang leader?
Thanks to the gang.
You're more or less just a question of consensus. You'd more or less.
There'd be no organisation.
No, automatically done. That was the spirit, of that sort of thing.
Some fellas would walk only and never took them off the walk.
No, that's right. I worked mostly down below all the time.
We're just getting onto this double dumping. Now, how was that campaign run? I mean, was this just a question of people in one hole would jack up, or did it become a general union principle? I mean, how did these how were these campaigns run?
Well, I think in myself that it's not only started on the wharf, it started in all these wool stores where these fellas were trucking wool all day. They just couldn't do it. It was too heavy.
They were
storming and packers, and they found that the putting the 2 bales together and squeezing the 2 bales together, they were dead. There's no movement in them, there wasn't. You couldn't
manipulate them around.
Sometimes to turn them over, you'd have to put a piece of wood underneath when you got it over, so that it'd be half tipped.
Like a lever.
like a lever, you know. And this is where and of course those fellas complained, but they were handling it all the time in the wharf stores and that. But on the wharf, like in the ship, you get into a tween deck, and some of them had to be trucked or rolled, and it didn't matter. Like labour wouldn't compensate you for it, money wouldn't compensate you for it. It was just sheer uh, it was just bullying, you know. That's a bit. It was the conditions were just that bad, you know. To kind of.
You had one man, if you had one man that wasn't pulling his weight, you had to make him pull it, didn't you? Because it'd kill you. Remember the bloke that used to walk on the bloody ice sticks rushing us?
Oh yes,
I was delegate on that. Yeah, the still bloke. I was delegate on the job one day, and the bloke was screaming and going on, you know. They were topping that wall.
Yeah.
And when I went down below to the job, they said he's not lifting the bloody ouch, you know. And he was killing the others.
Yeah. Oh yes, it's.
You got fellas, if they didn't pull their weight in that type of job, everybody had to pull their weight in it because it'd kill you, wouldn't it?
How long did it go on for, the double dump dispute?
Oh,
Do you remember?
Oh, went on for quite a while.
it was put on a national basis.
Yes.
National.
When was this, during the war or after?
No, this was during the war.
During the war. I
Yes.
remember double dump.
Yeah.
Very vaguely.
Yeah.
It was a very long dispute. Double dump.
Why?
Just
Who was behind it? The wool stores, the wool
No,
company?
started on the wall.
Started on the
The
wall,
wool store swung in behind us. The storemen and packers, their fellas, as Bert said, took it up because it was bloody killing them.
Yeah.
And the carters and drivers, everybody got involved in it. But it really started with Ely.
No, but wait a minute. I mean, why did they go in for double dumps at all? I mean, this was obviously
Space savers.
Space saver.
Space savers.
Well, Mindy, you'd be looking at it this way: if they got 8 single bales with the snotters on going in, and they could get 6 double dumps going in, they got 12 single bales
they were
going in.
more compressed.
Oh yeah, that was the two put together.
Metal wire.
Yeah.
And the bloody things used to bake on you. And they were dangerous, wasn't they? Bert?
And so the wool, the big wool exporting companies decided this is a way of getting more wool into a ship, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Space savers. More tonnage.
Yeah.
And it was some time before you were able to be.
It took a lot of beating.
We put those.
Cost, no. It cost like the waterside workers a lot of money in wages, lost wages and time, to trying to defeat something that should never ever arisen like, you know.
They didn't ever come to the party willingly, did they? You know, they always you always had to battle with them.
Well, I can always remember Jim Elliot, of course, saying, whatever you can get in the way of conditions of the waterfront, take 'em, because they'll never be given to you. Or whatever you can get, like, you know what I mean, in that respect, in the way of conditions. And when you look around today and you see the way they're just rubbishing them, like, you know, fellas that have worked their soul case out for and sacrificed a lot, it's unreal, like, you know, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, well, and did you know? I've often heard people they seem to be more. I mean, even if they're not politically interested, they seem to be much more union conscious than most other workers. I have the feeling it's because they all work in little groups on their own in a ship's hold, and they often had to, and they all had different things being put over them, and they had to be much more active in their own defence. I mean, you know, it might be just something happened to you, wasn't happening in the next hold.
Well, now the difference was that with the waterside workers, they were a common body. They all done the same thing. You weren't in a place where there was the blacksmiths had their union, the plumbers had their union, and they were all divided. And one would say, oh, well, what they're doing doesn't interfere with us. If they want to go and do that, let them go and do it. But on the waterfront, involvement was everybody. It never just Tom, Dick or Harry. It involved everybody. So it concerned everybody. That's correct, yes. And it concerned everybody. And these people, like when there was was put to them and was put to the union about different issues, they were 100% behind it because they knew that they weren't. It wasn't just something ridiculous; that it was warranted, like in the way of the double dumps, like had to be fought. The issue had to be fought out, and it did involve everybody.
I see. And would you be likely to call, I mean, that was something you could call lightning strikes over. What was the double down campaign? How was it run, John? Was it,
I was stacked on in Sydney, and then we switched from Melbourne
yeah,
to Sydney.
but would it have, did you go on a long, because you weren't having long strikes.
no,
You were having
it's
short, sharp.
You just,
Yes.
you'd probably bail a ship, see,
You were
stop the ship.
well. You was
Push
only
the double dumps out and wouldn't load them, things like that.
you were only hoping that with the protest you were voicing, that they might be eliminated. But it became that big an issue by the people that put it on, the greedy ones, I mean, that there was no opening on that. And the only way you could get out was to put a complete ban on them. And that involved everybody. And that was the last solution.
This question about how we work, Bert, people have asked me, well, why did you stop on the waterfront? Why didn't you go into some other industry? Why?
Yeah, well, the reason why I stayed on the waterfront, there was might have a lot of things that didn't suit me, but that could have been just the same anywhere else. But and the variety of the work that appealed to me, and the atmosphere and the comradeship and
a certain amount of food.
yes, that's right, yes, and I mean they say, oh yeah, you could have gone in and you could have gone and done that, but I was uneducated. I never had a trade. I come up through the years when everybody got kicked around and things like that. I went through the soup kitchens and things like that, and the waterfront appealed to me. And it was I just found that I was only a labourer, and it was a labouring job, and I just couldn't say, well, where else could I go?
You wouldn't want to go into a war factory, into an industry.
No. Oh no. I never had a job. I never had a real job till I went on the waterfront. I never earned a wage. That was all I ever knew. I never came out of a factory to go there. I never come up from like a boilermakers or something like that. I was just a labourer.
Anyway,
That's right.
during the war, you couldn't if you wanted to, couldn't you? Because you were manpower.
Oh, that's right. You were there.
Once you got there, you were
Yes, you were there. That's right. Yeah.
Now, look, tell me, you mentioned being a coalie. Now, we've interviewed two old coalies. One was Lou Albrecht, who was he's 85 or something. He's the oldest top man, last top man still living. We've got a lot of Lou.
Yeah.
He's going to be on telly next sometime or other.
Yeah.
And we've also got Tippo Hayes.
Oh, and
who
Tippo.
was a coalie.
Yeah.
He was a pushing the wagon. What do you call it?
Trolley boy, yeah, on the basket.
That's on the basket. Now tell us about coal when you were doing it then. Arthur Buner. No, not Tippo Hayes, Arthur Buner.
Yeah. Yeah. I never worked on the trolley or on the baskets.
What did you do?
I was only trimming, like, you know. Well, at the gas house. You'd start there at 8 o'clock in the morning and you'd finish at 8 o'clock the next morning. And you'd have to clean the tween decks out where the grab couldn't go in. See, they were grabbing there, they were running across the gas works, and it reached the stage where when they fill the ship, when they fill the ship up, of course, in the tween decks, the coal would fill into the tween decks, and it had to be shoveled out.
It's getting it when you're clearing it out, and they
and you'd throw it into the lower hold, like where the grab could get at it, like, you know.
Tell us how the grabs work. We haven't got anything about that. What were they like? I mean, what was it? Was it on a gang? No, we haven't. Grabs.
Well, like just down there at about 9 North Wharf, they had these cranes with the grabs on them, and a ship would come in, and they'd probably only pick up just a few members, like, you know, when it first started, just to clean up the decks or something like that. And then, when the grabs had reached a certain point, where they couldn't get out of the wings, they'd pick up 20 or 30 men, like, you know, and you'd go down with shovels and you'd throw it out from the wings, the sides of the ships, or in the after end or the forward end where the grab couldn't operate, and you'd throw it into a heap to where the grab could pick it up. And this was exactly the same in the 'tween decks, like, you know.
So I
Oh,
think that's what
goodness.
you were doing, was it?
Yeah.
What sort of a shop do you use? One of those, not a big, not the
Square
white
mouth.
one, a square,
Square mouth.
side, grey side. The
That's
square.
right. Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
see. Did you have to have your own, or did they supply them?
Oh no, you were there at the gangway, and you.
You know, things have changed
And-
when you had to
Yeah.
carry your own shovels to work.
Yeah, well,
Earlier.
that's when they done it on. I think the early one they done it piecework, didn't they, Tom?
Yes.
On the baskets and that, you know.
Ton.
Yes, yeah. Of course, that was only done on bunkering, you know.
Yeah.
Ships and bunkers, like, you know.
Yeah, well, it was pretty skilled. So, and how much would a grab pick up at a time?
Super plus frames, seven of them.
Well,
Yeah.
sorry, how much would a grab?
Oh, you'd be looking about 5 or 6 ton at a lift.
Was that what was going up?
About a ton.
A ton or something. Yes, so I think it was much.
Four to the ton. they were.
4 to a ton.
Oh yeah, Wendy, but see, with the basket they were only loading bunkers, you know.
How do you mean?
Well, they had a lighter with the coal in it.
Yeah.
And they'd have so many men in the lighter with the baskets,
Yeah.
probably about 8 or 10 men, and they'd fill the basket up and they'd whip it up on a whip, like, you know, crane,
Yeah.
winch, and they'd land it on the trolley and they'd run it from the lighter
Into the ship.
into the ship.
Yeah.
It was the ship's bunker, like, you know.
And they pick up trimmers for that also.
Was there any?
Yeah.
Oh, would they?
Yeah.
And was there much being done? Was the baskets and the crane sort of working at the same time? Were they were both in vogue when you were on, or had baskets entirely gone?
Oh no, you're looking at you only use the crane when you're discharging a coal.
You know, when Bert came into the game, what you saying, Bert, when you come into the game?
Yes.
No digging down thing, was it?
No. Oh, they were just on the fringe of it.
Just on the fringe.
Yeah.
There'd probably be some in the lighter, wouldn't there, in the Roma,
Yes. Yeah.
where Lou Oil Press
Just
was
on the edge.
but that was about the last of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
And they were trimming those two Ports and Harbour ships. I forget the name of them now. Remember the old
Oh,
dredges used to go down?
Yes. I just can't think of their names.
Yeah,
I see.
Matthew Flinders,
Yeah.
like
But
that.
on the whole, they changed it so most ships didn't bunker out, so
No.
ships came to the coal wharf instead of,
No,
or they took the crane, they took the grabs to them.
period we're talking about now, around about the 1940s, oil was the thing.
Oh,
Coal had gone out.
I see.
The only thing that was getting bunkered was the odd ship that was still a coal.
Yeah. The last one I ever done was a ship that just got out of a Dutch ship just got out of Java at Port Melbourne. Yeah, and I got down below there, and old Nugget Carlton was down there, and Tom Collins, one of the Collinses were down there. Yeah, and old Nugget Carlton, they're down there with half a dozen bottles of beer having a drink, and I come down. I don't know where I come from. So they showed me how to do it, and while I was doing it, they was having a little drink in the corner, you know.
You were doing the work.
And this was when you were drinking. You were drinking.
That's right. Yeah.
And when would that have been? Java, that was early in the war.
That's when the first of the Americans got here. Like the first.
After Pearl Harbor.
Yeah,
that
about
was
41, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 41.
And that was
Yeah.
when coal was really on its way out of there. Coal
Just
was-
about the last year.
So the oil burning came in during the war.
Oh yes.
I know,
Yeah.
oil burning was sort of
Yeah.
finished off during the war, I said. Yeah, that must have made a lot of difference to the look of the port, because just the old colliers and the lighters pulling around the port must have, been a totally different scene.
Oh yes.
That's at the south side when you come in.
Yeah, yeah. I worked the first one of the first coal boats I worked was the first with the daylight saving came in. And we started 8 o'clock on the Saturday morning. The winches broke down. And we finished 8 o'clock on the Sunday morning. And during the night we had to pull it along by hand. Heave it up. All with a shore, yeah, because the section of the coal berth was full. Yeah, we had to move it up a bit, like, Yeah, so they're talking about pulling boats up the Yarra. It was a reality, like, Oh, just lines and that, like, because there was plenty of us to do, and it wasn't a very big ship, of
You
course.
get 100 men on a ship, fair sized ship, what you say, and you lean against that ship and you get it out from the wall.
Oh, they know, men to be trapped.
Man's been trapped there, and everybody's got alongside the ship and put their back to it. Kept
Yeah.
the ship out while they got the personnel.
You can do that.
You can do that.
Gee.
You wouldn't credit it.
Have you done that?
Yes, I've done that.
Were there many accidents on the wharf when you were your time?
Well, I was it's only suppose about 10 years ago. One of the worst I seen, like being a foreman, was at I think it was at 8 dock. They were bringing timber out, and this fellow was over the hatch. And what they should have done was they should have seen that the wharf was clear first, which it wasn't. Of course, when it come up and there was one under the hook, they brought it back, and in the process of bringing it back, he got killed on the deck, No, it come back and just swung back on him. He never had his back to us. Yeah, yeah. They brought it up, Tom, the pack of timber, and he brought it over. Then he went to the side of the ship and seen one under the hook, so he had to swing it back and hang it on the deck. Because he went back and either he went back, looked over the hold, and in the process of bringing the pack back to land, hang it on the deck, it swung and hit him against the cowlings.
Worst case I had was we're putting a big case in the wing. You used to put a snatch block in and run a wire, run a rope around it, and pull it into the wing with the gear. And this bloke come back after lunch, had a few in, walk between the bloody case and the ship's side. So, well, didn't know, nobody knew he was there.
What was he sneaking off the wing?
No, he'd come back to work and he'd had a few drinks. Nobody would have went in that position, but behind it, because the wire could carry away, the block could carry away, anything could happen apart from that. You pulling the case in, and there's the ship's side, and you're pulling the case in like that, and between the two, and got squashed.
All in all, I don't think, like for an industry like the wharf, the casualty rate's been very low. The years that I've been down there.
Former saved me one night. Another cable like that. So I'm standing there, empty ship's soul, no air, leaning over the cone. Leaned over the cone, I'm standing there, and this is under my feet. I went to move back. It rolled.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was going over that. Four felons. The foreman was on the side of me, took up into bed. If he hadn't been there, I was down the bottom.
yeah.
How far down?
Oh, empty ship about 60 feet.
Well, now, how long was a ship? Was a shift, when you were working? Could you be called upon to work 24 hours, or they gone in?
Oh no, you was only told, if the job was, you knew that it was going to work 24 hours, in such in respect to coal, but you wouldn't do it on cargo.
The 24 and 36s had gone out by that time. They've been back in the union.
Outside.
Yeah.
Coal was a separate section.
You could work that length of time on coal even then. Why didn't they jack up on it?
Well, they were a separate section. They had rules of their own, didn't they?
They had their own rules and regulations.
It's interesting. What you were saying before was when you were all in together, the people who worked general cargo, one out was all out because you were all on the same thing. Now, coal was a different section, a different skill, different conditions, and they didn't feel themselves part of it.
They had an award of their own.
An award of their own. They were almost separate in their way of thinking.
They belonged to the youth.
Yeah. Would it be hard to get them out when you want to stop the port? I mean, if it's a different issue.
No, that's probably. Oh, they had plenty of men that was prepared, that they knew. Oh no, but they were still part of the union. They were still part of the WWF. Oh no. No.
Now, if you said stop, they stopped.
But would they tend to be a one that you had to work harder to win over on those sort of things? I just thought that if it wasn't in their, if it wasn't their trade, they might not be interested in the general conditions part.
Well, I think there was not an antagonism, Bert, was there? There was, the bloody coalies.
They just got one on their own. They done that section of the work, and they found that they were all working together all the time. And they just found they were a body of their own,
They'd go a month without a job, and there'd be plenty of work in the port in the cargo, and they would not go to a cargo job.
That's right. They were coal.
They were coal, weren't they? Even though they might be broke or something, would they? They wouldn't go to a.
No.
They wouldn't go to a cargo.
They were coal. They were coalies.
Charlie Young never worked in cargo until the war. He worked timber.
Oh, see.
All he followed was timber boats. I mean, followed different sections.
So you had fellas that followed the steel boats, and you couldn't get a job. Like you had fellas that followed Patrick's, and to get a job there at Patrick's or something like that, somebody'd have to be sick, and they'd say, "All right, well, you know, you," and they'd pick you up, and you go to grab a two-wheeler, and an old bloke would come up and he said, "Hey, don't touch that." And you'd say, "Well, I'm going to like start work. It's a two-wheeler." "Oh no," he said, "I've been having that two-wheeler. That's been my two-wheeler for 3 or 5 years now, like, you know." He said, "You can't take that." "Oh, sorry, mate."
I used to deliberately torment him if ever I got something like that. I'd go and take that bloody two-wheeler, then they'd blow.
They were really, you know, well, this all changed when the gang system came in. When did the gang system come in?
In 42.
Wow, so
the gang,
you took that before the gang system, and it's following Patrick, following Timber.
yes, I'm talking about the pickup,
Yeah.
the ordinary pickup where, you know, it was pretty tough, like in the ordinary pickup. Like I can remember two brothers there. One was called Pinocchio, and they used to get up on this fence where the foreman used to come up to pick up, like, you know, and they'd stick their face that close to him that like they were practically inches apart, like, you know, practically kissed him. Well, I reckon they might have been sometime they might have been trying to kiss him for a job, you know. And to see this bloke with this enormous nose, like, you know, it was really funny, like, you know. And if you never got picked up, why did you pick me out a squeaky voice like Pinocchio? Why did you pick me up? I'm always here, like, you know, and all this sort of thing went on, like, you know.
Okay. Now, when the gang system came in, how did it change things on the board?
Well, it brought, I think it brought a lot of men together
Was it
because you
better?
had a 17-handed gang for a start. And you had 17 fellas that were working together all the time and knew each other. Uh, that's right, yes. And,
Well, before you did,
and,
I said I picked up you and you and you and you and you.
and then you had fellas that didn't want to be in a gang and they called them floaters. And,
Did you think the gang system was an improvement?
I think the gang system was one of the greatest things that ever happened on the waterfront. It brought more unity, more strength amongst the members. You know, you had 17 fellows thinking the same way, and to a certain extent, they wouldn't be all at the same mind, but they all had their opinion came together, didn't they? If you
They graduated to the type of game that it was. There's some games you wouldn't go in, you wouldn't join.
oh, that's right.
Tough games.
There's gangs that, like, if you was a non-drinker, you wouldn't go into a drinking gang, which was their business. Nobody was opposed to that if they had a drink. Then you know, you just the gang that suited you, you'd be floating around if there was a vacancy in that gang. Well, you'd like to join it and become a member of it.
They'd ask you if you wanted to join their gang, you know, or if there's a vacancy there, you knew somebody in it, you say, I wouldn't mind joining the gang. Well, the gang make a decision themselves about that, whether you was in that gang or not. You know.
Now, once the gang system changed, you were saying how gangs protected the weaker members. This would have been better than because in the past these foremen would have picked up the weaker blokes, would they? Unless they had to.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. These people had to get like they were on the waterfront and they had to live, and they were all anybody ever got out of the waterfront was a living. And that's
Yeah, I tell you, I mean,
they got the blame for that, Wendy.
I don't want to interrupt in their stuff, but just to give you, just to give an illustration what we're talking about. I was delegate on a job with Father Feeney. You remember Father Feeney?
Yeah.
And there's a bloke just joined the job. They just joined the waterfront, and he's put down below. And what do you think they're on? On those bloody big sacks from India, you know?
Gunnies.
On the gunnies.
Gunny bags.
Well, Father, slogging with, they're standing them up. They're putting a sling around. This is Roy Warner's was involved in this. Father Feeney looks down and he can see the tonnage is not going to come out with this fella, you know, because the poor bugger, this is his first job and he's never done it. And he went out on the walk and he said to Roy Warren, who was working with him, Warren, you go down below, and the fella come out on the walk. Warren said to me, I don't know, Tom. I said, no, you stop at the walk. So he said, I said, you stop on the walk, I'll see for other things. Oh, good God, Tom. He said, look at that man, he can't do it. I said, well, the medical bloody board said he could do it when he went up before the doctor. He was accepted and he signed a statement that he could do all types of work, you know. It wasn't a question of not helping the fellow, it was a question of a principle being involved. Yeah. Well, he fetched the port inspector, because the port inspector ruled against me. Well, I rang up Harry Neal and told him. He said, put Beanie on the phone. He said the man stopped where he was.
Well, why was that? Did he have to learn?
Yeah, he had to learn. Well, this is what they're talking about, what we're talking about, you know. Well, that fella, if he was in a gang of sailing, oh, you do it. Even as a matter of fact, Roy Werner, after we'd settled it and established that the fellow was down below, Roy Werner said to me, I'll go down below now, Tom. Yeah.
You mean you were going to organise, but you weren't going to have the blokes to still
Well, no, we were establishing it was a principle, because if we let them do that kind of thing, they could have switched the gang. And this is what the gang system now, previously, before the gang system, he'd have just taken that fellow out and put him out. And what time you couldn't have done a thing about.
Well, he mightn't have picked him up.
Oh, I might have sacked him.
Sacked.
Should have sacked him. Yeah, he could have finished him. He could say, well, you're finished tonight. You're finished. We're shortening down. And he could bring a fellow from another gang that was finishing and put him in his place.
Once you put a gang on, you didn't have to keep that gang on to the end of the job. You could sack a single man or whatever. Yeah, before the gang. I mean,
Before the gang.
when you're picking up.
It reached the stage, Wendy, with the gang system, they tried to discriminate against that, like every other thing they did. And the position came where they had to pick up gangs as they were rotated. If you've got 6 gangs per shift, you had to put the first gang at number 1, the second gang at number 2, so on, so that you couldn't uh, discriminate them by putting a gang where you could get where they wouldn't suit you. And,
Yeah, Bluey's got